3 days ago, my identical twin sister walked into my law office wearing sunglasses and a turtleneck in the middle of a scorching July heat wave. I didn't know it yet, but the woman standing in front of me was about to turn me into a criminal. She was about to make me cross every line I had ever sworn to uphold. And honestly, I would do it again in a heartbeat. I watched her take off those sunglasses, and the sound that left my throat wasn't human. It was a gasp that felt like it tore something open inside my chest. My sister wasn't just hurt. She was broken. But what she told me next didn't just break my heart. It filled me with a cold, dark rage that I didn't know I was capable of feeling. And right then, looking at her swollen face, I made a decision. He thought he was going home to his terrified, submissive wife. He had no idea he was about to walk through the door and face a monster. But before I tell you how I destroyed him, you need to understand who we were. We weren't just twins. We were two halves of the same soul. That's what our mom used to say. Kenya and Kesha, identical in every way that mattered, at least on the outside. Same deep brown eyes, same curly hair, same height, same smile. Growing up, we used to pull the classic switch. I'd take our math test. She'd go to my art class. We fooled teachers, friends, even our parents sometimes. It was innocent back then. Just a game. We had no idea that 20 years later, that same game would be the only thing standing between my sister and a coffin. Life has a funny way of pulling people apart. I was the sharp one, the ambitious one. I went to law school, clawed my way to the top of a prestigious firm in the city. I became a shark. I spent my days cross-examining criminals, tearing apart arguments, and hardening my heart to get the win. I lived for the fight, Kesha. She was the soft one. The light? She became a second-grade teacher because she wanted to nurture people. She wanted a family, a home piece. She was the kind of woman who would catch a spider and put it outside rather than squish it. I thought she was safe. I thought she was happy when she met Marcus. I should have looked closer. I should have used my lawyer brain to see the cracks in the charming facade. He was a pharmaceutical sales rep, handsome, smooth, the kind of guy who knew exactly what to say to make a woman feel like the center of the universe. At their wedding, he cried during his vows. He promised to protect her with his life. I believed him, God. I was such a fool. After the wedding, things got busy. You know how it is. I was working 80-hour weeks chasing partner status. Kesha was busy with the new house, then the baby, my beautiful niece, Aaliyah. Our phone calls went from daily to weekly, then monthly. Every time I saw her, she seemed quieter, smaller. I told myself it was just motherhood. I told myself she was just tired. But I missed the signs. I missed the way she flinched when he moved too fast. I missed the way she stopped wearing short sleeves. I missed the way she looked at him for approval. Before she answered a simple question, I was too busy winning cases for strangers to see that my own sister was losing her life until that. Tuesday, my secretary buzzed me, her voice tight. "Ms. Matthews, your sister is here. She doesn't look good." My stomach dropped. I didn't know why, but a sudden wave of nausea hit me. "Send her in." The door opened and Kesha limped in. That's the first thing I noticed. The limp, she was favoring her left side like her ribs were made of glass. And then the outfit. It was 85 degrees outside, humid enough to drink the air. And she was wrapped in a thick turtleneck and oversized sunglasses. "Kesha." I stood up, my hands trembling slightly. "What's going on?" She didn't speak. She just stood there by the door, shaking. I walked around my desk, my heart hammering against my ribs. I locked the office door. I needed privacy. I had a feeling that whatever was about to be said, I didn't want anyone else to hear it. "Take off the glasses," I said. My voice was gentle, but firm. The lawyer voice. She shook her head, tears slipping out from under the frames. "Kesha, take them off." She reached up with a hand that was shaking so bad she could barely grip the frames. She slid them off. I froze. I literally froze in place. Her left eye was swollen shut. A grotesque shade of purple and black. Her lip was split wide open, caked with dried blood. There was a gash on her cheekbone that looked deep enough to need stitches. "Oh my God," I whispered. I reached out, but I was afraid to touch her, afraid I might break her. "Who did this?" I asked, though deep down in the pit of my stomach, I already knew. "Don't call the police," she sobbed, grabbing my hand. Her grip was weak, desperate. "Please, Kenya, you can't call them. He said he'd kill me. He said if I told anyone, he'd kill Aaliyah." The name of my 5-year-old niece hit me like a physical blow. "Marcus?" I asked. The name tasted like poison in my mouth. She nodded, looking down at the floor. He had a bad day at work. He came home angry. I didn't have dinner ready on time. He did this because of dinner." I felt the room spinning. "It's not just the dinner," she whispered. "It's everything. It's always everything. Roll up your sleeves," I commanded. "Kenya, please roll them up." She pushed up the sleeves of the turtleneck. I had to grab the edge, of my desk to keep from falling over. Her arms were a roadmap of pain, old yellow bruises fading into new purple ones, finger marks shaped like a grip, and there, near her wrist, circular burns. "Are those cigarette burns?" I choked out. "He likes to teach me lessons," she said, her voice sounding dead, hollow. "He says pain helps me remember not to make mistakes." I felt something snap inside my brain, a literal snap. The professional.com/ethical lawyer vanished. In her place was something primal, something dangerous. "How long?" I asked. 3 years, she whispered. "It started right after we got married. Just a shove here, a slap there. Then his mom moved in, Diane." I asked, "Diane lives with you?" "She moved in 2 years ago. And then Tamika came back 6 months ago." Tamika, his sister. I remembered her from the wedding, loud, rude, looking at everyone like they were beneath her. They watch," Kesha said, her voice trembling. "Sometimes they hold me down. Diane tells him I need to be disciplined." Tamika laughs. She says I'm useless. I couldn't breathe. My sister was living in a house of horrors, a torture chamber disguised as a suburban dream home. "Elia?" I asked, terrified of the answer. Kesha broke down completely then. She collapsed into the chair, sobbing so hard her whole body shook. He hit her. Last night, she was crying because he was yelling at me, and he backhanded her across the face. "She's 5, Kenya. She's 5. That was it. That was the line." He touched the child. I walked over to my window and looked out at the city skyline. My blood was boiling so hot I thought my veins might burst. I looked at my reflection in the glass. I looked exactly like her. The bruises were missing, the pain was missing, but the face was the same. I turned back to her. "You're not going back there," I said. "I have to." She panicked. "He'll find me. He checks the mileage on the car. He tracks my phone. If I'm not home by 5 to cook dinner, I don't know what he'll do." I said, "You aren't going back there," I said, my voice dropping an octave. "But someone is." She looked at me, confusion warring with fear in her one good eye. "What? Give me your phone," I said. "And your keys." "Kenya? No. You don't understand. He's big. He's violent. He used to play football. He'll hurt you." I walked over and knelt in front of her. I took her hands in mine. "You won't hurt me," I said, "because I'm not you, Kesha. I love you, but we are different. You have a heart of gold. I have a heart of ice. You forgive. I get even. You can't," she whispered. "I can, and I will. We're going to swap. You're going to stay here at my apartment. You're going to heal. You're going to eat whatever you want and sleep as long as you want. And I'm going to go play house. He'll know," she said. "He'll know it's not me. Will he?" I stood up and smoothed my skirt. "Does he ever really look at you? Or does he just look at a punching bag? Does he listen to your voice or just the sound of you apologizing?" She went silent. We both knew the answer. 3 days, I said. "Give me 3 days. I need to get evidence. I need to record him. I need to get enough to put him and his twisted family away for so long they'll forget what sunlight looks like. If we go to the cops now, it's your word against his. He's charming. He's got a clean record. We need proof. It's too dangerous, she pleaded. I box 3 times a week, I reminded her. I know how to take a hit. And more importantly, I know how to throw one. I spent the next hour getting the details. I needed to know everything. The layout of the house, the schedule, what time he came home, what Diane drank, what Tamika watched on TV. I downloaded her life into my brain like it was a case file. We went to my apartment first. I got her settled. I saw the relief wash over her just from being in a room where she knew no one was going to hurt her. It broke me all over again. Then I transformed. I put on a turtleneck, even though I was sweating. I put on the sunglasses. I practiced the limp. I practiced the slump in the shoulders. It's a posture of a woman who has been beaten down until she's trying to disappear. I looked in the mirror. I saw my sister, but behind the sunglasses, my eyes were cold. I'll be back, I promised her. And when I come back, you're going to be free. I took her Cara beat-up sedan that smelled like old fast food and fear. I drove to the suburbs. My hands were gripping the steering wheel so tight my knuckles were white. But as I pulled into the driveway of that 2-story brick house, something unexpected happened. I wasn't scared, I was excited. I wanted him to try it. I desperately wanted him to try it. I checked the time. For 4:45 p.m., he would be home at 6 o'clock. I grabbed the purse, took a deep breath, and channeled Kesha. Shoulders down, head down, make yourself small. I unlocked the front door and stepped inside. The house felt heavy. You know that feeling when you walk into a room where people have been arguing? The air felt thick, oppressive. It smelled like lemon cleaner and stale cigarettes. You're late? The voice came from the living room. It was sharp, scratchy Dot. I walked in. An older woman was sitting in the recliner watching a talk show. Diane Dot, she didn't even look at me. She just stared at the TV, holding a glass of wine that looked a little too full for 5 p.m. I had to get gas, I said, pitching my voice soft and tremulous, just like Kesha's. Don't give me excuses, Diane snapped. Marcus is going to be hungry. And don't make that chicken again. It was dry as dust last time. Honestly, I don't know why he keeps you around. You can't cook, you can't clean, she trailed off, taking a swig of wine. I stood there, staring at the back of her head. I imagined walking over there and tipping that recliner over, but not yet. Patience. I'll start dinner right now, I said. I walked into the kitchen. It was a mess. Dishes piled in the sink. Sticky spots on the counter. These 3 adults lived here. And my sister, the only one working a full-time job, was the only one who cleaned. I felt a surge of rage, but I pushed it down. I started opening cabinets. I needed to find the knives. Not to use them, but to know where they were. Just in case. Then the back door opened. Tamika walked in, trailing smoke. She was on her phone, laughing loudly. Girl, I know. He is so stupid, she yelled into the phone. She saw me and rolled her eyes. Hold on. The maid is finally home. She hung up and looked me up and down. Where have you been? I needed you to iron my red dress. I'm going out tonight. I looked at her. She was younger than me, heavyset, wearing clothes that were too tight. The entitlement oozing off her was suffocating. I didn't have time, I mumbled, turning back to the sink. Excuse me? Her voice went high. You didn't have time. What else do you do all day? You teach 2nd graders. It's basically babysitting. You'd better iron that dress before Marcus gets home, or I'm going to tell him you were being disrespectful again. There it was. The threat. The leverage. I'll do it after I start the potatoes, I said, gripping the edge of the counter. You'll do it now, she said, stepping closer. She poked me in the shoulder, hard. I froze. Every instinct in my body screamed to grab her finger and snap it. My lawyer brain said assault. My boxer brain said left hook. But my sister's brain said survive. "'Kay?" I whispered. "I'm sorry. I'll do it now," Tamika smirked. A cruel, ugly twist of her lips. That's what I thought. Know your place, Kesha. I walked past her, head down, and went to the laundry room. I set up the ironing board. My hands were shaking, but not from fear. I was shaking from the effort of holding back. I ironed the stupid red dress. I peeled the potatoes. I seasoned the steaks. And then, at 5:58 p.m., heard the garage door rumble open. The sound changed the entire atmosphere of the house in the living room. Diane sat up straighter. In the hallway, Tamika stopped texting. Upstairs, I heard the faint sound of a door clicking. Shatolia hiding. The monster was home. My heart began to race. A steady thrumming against my ribs. This was it. The moment of truth. If he looked me in the eye, would he see the difference? Would he see the fire instead of the fear? The door from the garage opened. Heavy footsteps. He walked into the kitchen. He was big. Bigger than I expected. Broad shoulders, thick neck. He was wearing a suit that cost more than my sister made in a month. He smelled like expensive cologne and bourbon. He stopped in the doorway and looked at me. I turned from the stove, keeping my eyes on his chest, avoiding his gaze. "Dinner is almost ready," I said softly. He didn't speak. He just walked over to me. He moved into my personal space, looming over me, sucking the air out of the room. He reached out a hand. I flinched. It wasn't acting. He laughed. A low, dark sound. "Relax," he said. He grabbed my chin hard and forced me to look up at him. His eyes were cold, dead. There was no love in them, only possession. "You've still got those glasses on." He asked, "Take M off. Let me see my handiwork." My stomach turned. He was proud of the bruises. I reached up and took off the sunglasses. I revealed the swollen eye, the split lip. He smiled. "See? You listen better when you're reminded of who's in charge." He let go of my chin with a shove. "Get my food on the table. I'm starving." He turned his back on me and walked into the living room to greet his mother. I stared at his back. I grabbed the steak knife on the counter. For a second, just one dark, tempting second, I thought about ending it right there. But that would be too easy. That would be prison for me. No. I had a better plan. I was going to strip him of everything. His money, his freedom, his pride. I was going to leave him naked and shivering in a cell. I plated the food. I put it on the table. Dinner. I called out. They all came in. Marcus sat at the head of the table like a king. Diane on his right, Tamika on his left. I stood by the stove. "Sit down," Marcus barked. I sat at the far end. "Where's Aaliyah?" he asked, stuffing a piece of steak into his mouth. She's not feeling well," I lied. "She's sleeping. I wasn't going to let him near her. Not tonight. Not ever again." "Go get her," he said, chewing with his mouth open. "She needs to eat." "She threw up," I said, improvising. "I think it's a stomach bug. She's contagious." Diane wrinkled her nose. "Well, keep her upstairs then. I don't want to get sick before my bridge game tomorrow." Marcus grunted. He took another bite of steak, then stopped. He frowned. He looked at the steak. Then he looked at me. "What is this?" he asked. It's steak," I said. "It tastes like rubber." He spat the meat onto his plate. "Did you overcook it again?" "How many times do I have to tell you? Medium rare." "This is trash." "I'm sorry," I said. "I tried too. You tried." He stood up. The chair scraped loudly against the floor. "You tried. I work all day to pay for this food, and you ruin it. Here we go." He walked around the table. Diane watched with a bored expression. Tamika smirked, chewing on a roll. They were used to this. This was their dinner theater. Marcus stopped right next to me. I could smell the alcohol on his breath now. "Look at me when I'm talking to you," he growled. I looked up. "You're useless," he said. "You know that. Useless." He raised his hand. It was a reflex for him. Muscle memory. He didn't even think about it. He just swung his backhand toward my face, aiming for the spot he had already battered yesterday. But he made a mistake. He wasn't swinging at Kasha. Time seemed to slow down. I saw the hand coming. I saw the rotation of his hips. I saw the sadistic glint in his eyes. I didn't cower. I didn't close my eyes. I moved, my left hand shot up and caught its wrist just inches from my face. The sound of my palm slapping against his wrist echoed in the silent kitchen. Marcus froze. His eyes went wide. He looked at his hand, suspended in the air, caught in my grip. Then he looked at me. For the first time, he really looked at me, and he saw something he didn't recognize. "What the—" he started. I squeezed. I have a grip strength of 80 pounds. I dug my thumb into the pressure point on the inside of his wrist. "Don't," I said. My voice wasn't soft anymore. It was low, steady, and dangerous. The room went dead silent. Diane dropped her fork. Tamika stopped chewing. Marcus tried to yank his hand back, but I held on, just for a second longer, just to let him know that the power dynamic had shifted. Then I shoved his hand away. He stumbled back a step, rubbing his wrist, looking at me with pure confusion. "Did you just ... grab me?" I said, "Don't touch me," I repeated, standing up. I was wearing heels, which put me almost at eye level with him. "You think you can fight back now?" He laughed, but it sounded nervous. "You think because you've got a little brave you can challenge me in my house?" He stepped forward again, bunching his fist. He was going to escalate. He had to. His ego couldn't handle the rejection. "I suggest you sit down and eat your rubber steak, Marcus," I said. "Because if you swing at me again, you're going to regret it." "Regret it?" His face turned purple. "I'll kill you." He lunged, toned, he threw a clumsy haymaker punch aimed right at my temple. I ducked. It was so slow compared to the fighters I sparred with. I slipped under his arm, pivoted, shoved him hard in the back. He lost his balance and crashed chest first into the kitchen counter. A bowl of mashed potatoes went flying, splattering all over Diane's blouse. My blouse. Diane shrieked. "You clumsy idiot." Marcus spun around, his face a mask of pure rage. He grabbed a steak knife from the table. "You're dead," he roared. "You hear me? You're dead." This was it. He had a weapon. I backed up, keeping the kitchen island between us. "Put the knife down, Marcus. I'm gonna carve that other eye out," he screamed, advancing on me, but then something happened that none of us expected. A small voice from the hallway. "Daddy!" We all froze. Aaliyah was standing there holding a teddy bear, her eyes wide with terror. Marcus stopped. He looked at his daughter, then at the knife in his hand.
For a second, I thought he might stop. I thought there might be a shred of humanity left in him. "Go back to bed, Aaliyah," he screamed at her, waving the knife. "Get out of here." Aaliyah screamed and ran back upstairs. That was the moment I decided he wasn't just going to jail. I was going to ruin him. "Put the knife down," I said again, my voice trembling with suppressed rage. "Or so help me God." "Or what?" he sneered. "What are you gonna do, Kesha? Cry?" He threw the knife. It wasn't a good throw. It clattered against the wall a foot from my head and fell to the floor. But the intent was there. "Get out of my sight," he panted, leaning against the counter. "Go to your room. If I see you again tonight, I'll finish what I started." I looked at him. I looked at Diane, who was furiously wiping potatoes off her shirt, ignoring the violence that just happened. I looked at Tamika, who was scrolling on her phone, bored. "Gladly," I said. I turned and walked out of the kitchen. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. I went upstairs, but I didn't go to the master bedroom. I went to Aaliyah's room. I locked the door. I pushed a dresser in front of it. I hugged my niece until she fell asleep. And then I took out the tiny, high-definition camera I had hidden in my purse. I placed it on the bookshelf, hidden behind a stuffed animal, pointing at the door. I took out another one and clipped it to my robe. I pulled out a digital voice recorder and taped it to the underside of the nightstand. I wasn't sleeping tonight. I sat in the dark, listening to the sounds of the house. I heard Marcus stumbling around downstairs. I heard him yelling at Diane. I heard glass breaking. He was unraveling. And tomorrow I was going to pull the thread that would undo his entire life. I thought the night would be the hardest part, waiting in the dark, wondering if he would break down the door. But I was wrong. The hardest part was the next morning. Because that's when I realized that Marcus wasn't the only one I had to worry about. That's when I found out about the plan. I woke up to the sound of whispering outside the door. I was stiff. Sleeping in a chair pushed against a barricaded door isn't exactly comfortable, but I wasn't there for comfort. I was there for war. I checked my watch. 6:00 a.m. Aaliyah was still asleep in her bed, clutching that teddy bear like a lifeline. I looked at her innocent face and felt a fresh wave of anger. She had learned to be quiet. She had learned to make herself invisible. No 5-year-old should have to learn that skill. I moved the dresser away from the door as quietly as I could. I needed to get Aaliyah to school. That was priority number 1. Get the innocent out of the blast zone. I opened the door. The hallway was empty, but I could smell coffee. I got Aaliyah up, dressed her, and marched her downstairs. I didn't let go of her hand for a second. Diane was in the kitchen, nursing a mug. She looked at me, then at Aaliyah, and sneered. "You're actually taking her to school?" she asked. "I thought she was sick." "She's feeling better," I said, my voice flat. "Marcus is still asleep," Diane said, her eyes narrowing. "He had a rough night because of you. You upset him. You know he has high blood pressure." I almost laughed. This woman was worried about the abuser's blood pressure, while my sister was recovering from a concussion. "Tell him I'll be back," I said. I drove Aaliyah to school. The drop-off was the hardest part. She clung to my leg, looking up at me with big, watery eyes. "Mommy, are you gonna be okay?" she whispered. "Daddy was really mad." I knelt down and smoothed her hair. "I'm going to be fine, baby. Better than fine. Everything is going to change, I promise." I watched her walk into the building, and I felt a weight lift off my chest. She was safe for the next 6 hours. Now I could get to work. I drove back to the house. I parked the car, took a deep breath, and prepared for round 2. But when I walked up the driveway, I saw something that made my blood run cold. A police car. 2 of them, actually, lights flashing silently in the morning sun. My heart dropped. Marcus, he had called them. I knew exactly what he was doing. It's a classic abuser tactic. DARVO, deny, attack, and reverse victim and offender. He was going to claim *I was the crazy one, that I was the violent one. He was trying to get ahead of the narrative. I walked into the house. Marcus was sitting on the couch, holding an ice pack to his wrist, the one I had squeezed last night. He was putting on a show. He looked tragic, misunderstood. Diane was hovering over him, looking like a concerned mother hen. 2 officers were standing there taking notes. One was an older guy, looked tired. The other was a rookie, young and eager. "There she is," Marcus shouted, pointing at me with his good hand. "That's her. She's unstable, officer. She attacked me last night. She almost broke my wrist." The officers turned to look at me. I stood in the doorway, wearing my sister's cardigan and sensible flats, looking confused and small. "Ma'am," the older officer said, "step inside, please. We need to talk." I walked in slowly. "What's going on?" I asked, keeping my voice shaky. "Your husband claims you assaulted him last night," the officer said. "He says you threatened him with a knife." "A knife?" I gasped. I looked at Marcus. "Marcus, why are you lying?" "Lying?" Marcus stood up, playing the victim perfectly. "Look at my wrist. It's bruised. You grabbed me. You're crazy, Kesha. I don't know what's gotten into you, but I don't feel safe in my own home." Diane chimed in. "It's true, officer. She's been acting strange for days, aggressive, paranoid. I think she's on something." The rookie cop looked at me suspiciously. "Ma'am, have you been using drugs?" I looked at them. The setup was perfect. They were painting me as the hysterical, drug-addicted wife so they could get me committed or arrested. If I was the real Kesha, I would have panicked. I would have cried, screamed, tried to defend myself, which would only make me look guiltier. But I wasn't Kesha. I was a defense attorney who had cross-examined murderers. "Officer," I said calmly, "may I reach into my purse?" The older cop nodded, his hand resting near his belt. Slowly. I reached into my bag. I didn't pull out a weapon. I pulled out a manila folder. "My husband called you because he's afraid," I said. "But he's not afraid of my violence. He's afraid because for the first time in 3 years, I defended myself." I opened the folder. "This," I said, handing a photo to the officer, "is a picture of my face 2 days ago. Note the black eye and the split lip." The officer took the photo. His eyebrows went up. "And this," I handed him a medical report, "is from the ER visit last year when I fell down the stairs and broke 3 ribs." The attending physician noted that the bruising patterns were inconsistent with a fall. I kept handing him papers. "This is a log of the police calls from the neighbors reporting screaming coming from this address. Calls that were never followed up on. And this," I pulled out my phone, "is a video from yesterday morning." I pressed play and held the screen up for the officers. The video showed Marcus screaming at me, cornering me in the kitchen, raising his hand. It showed me catching his wrist. It showed him grabbing the knife and throwing it. The audio was crisp and clear. I'm gonna carve that other eye out. The silence in the living room was deafening. Marcus's face went from smug to pale in about 3 seconds. The older officer watched the video twice. Then he looked at Marcus. The sympathy was gone. "Mr. Johnson," the officer said, his voice hard, "you said she attacked you unprovoked." "She did," Marcus stammered. "The video, it doesn't show everything. She provoked me." "Sir, you threw a knife at your wife," the officer said. "That's assault with a deadly weapon." "It missed," Marcus yelled. "It didn't even hit her." "That doesn't matter," the officer said. He turned to me. "Ma'am, do you want to press charges? We can arrest him right now." I looked at Marcus. He was sweating. He was terrified. And I knew, right then, that sending him to jail for a night wasn't enough. He'd be out on bail by dinner. He'd come back angrier. I needed to finish this properly. I needed to burn his life to the ground so completely that he could never hurt anyone again. "No," I said softly. The officer looked surprised. "Ma'am, based on this video." "I don't want to press charges today," I said. "I just want it on the record. I want a report filed stating that you came here, you saw the evidence, and you saw that I am the victim, not the aggressor." "We can do that," the officer said. He turned to Marcus. "You're lucky, buddy, very lucky, but we're filing a report, and we're going to be driving by this house a lot. If we get another call, if she has so much as a scratch on her, you're going downtown. Do you understand?" Marcus nodded, mute with rage. The police left. The door closed, and the silence that followed was heavy. Marcus stared at me. He looked like he was trying to solve a puzzle. The Kesha he knew would have been crying, begging the police not to take him. The Kesha he knew didn't keep detailed files of evidence in her purse. "Who are you?" he whispered. "I'm your wife," I said, keeping my face blank. "I'm just tired of being your punching bag." I walked upstairs and locked myself in the bedroom. Round 2 went to me. But I knew it wasn't over, not even close. An hour later, I heard the front door open again. New voices. "Where is she?" A deep, booming male voice. "She's upstairs," Tamika's voice. "She thinks she's tough now, Dree. She needs to learn some respect." I stood up from the bed. Dree, Tamika's on-again, off-again boyfriend. I remembered hearing about him. He was a bouncer at a club downtown. Big guy, used to solving problems with his fists. They were bringing in muscle. I stretched my neck. Crack, crack. I took off the cardigan. It restricted my movement. I was wearing a tank top underneath. I walked out to the landing. Tamika and a man, the size of a refrigerator, were standing at the bottom of the stairs. Marcus was watching from the living room, arms crossed. "That her?" Dree asked, looking up at me. "Yeah," Tamika said. She put her hands on Marcus. She thinks she runs this house now. Dree chuckled. It was a low, rumbling sound. He started walking up the stairs. "Hey, little lady," he said. "We need to have a talk about respect." I didn't move. I stood at the top of the stairs, looking down at him. "This is a private residence," I said calmly. "You're trespassing." "I ain't trespassing," Dree grinned, showing a gold tooth. "I'm a guest, and I'm here to teach you some manners." He reached the top step. He towered over me. He had at least 100 pounds on me. "Tamika says you like to grab wrists," he said. "Grab mine." He shoved his hand in my face. "Don't do this, Dree," I said. "You don't want to get involved in a domestic dispute. You have a record, right? Assault, battery." His smile faded. "How you know that?" "I know a lot of things," I said. "Go back downstairs." "Nah," he said. "I don't take orders from." He reached for me. He grabbed my shoulder, his fingers digging into my trapezius muscle. He intended to shove me backward. Bad move. I didn't pull away. I stepped asterisk into asterisk him. I grabbed his wrist with one hand and his shirt collar with the other. I dropped my center of gravity, pivoting my hips. It's simple physics. It doesn't matter how big they are. If you control their balance, you control them. I used his own downward momentum against him. I twisted, pulled, and popped my hips. Dree went flying. He didn't go down the stairs. I wasn't trying to kill him, but he went over my hip and slammed onto the hardwood floor of the hallway with a crash that shook the house. Wham! The air rushed out of his lungs with a wheeze. I was on him in a second. I put my knee on his throat, not enough to crush it, just enough to let him know I could. I hissed, leaning close to his face, "Go back downstairs." Dree's eyes were bulging. He tapped the floor frantically. I stood up and stepped back. He scrambled backward, coughing, looking at me like I was a demon. You crazy," he gasped. He scrambled to his feet and practically fell down the stairs trying to get away from me. "I'm out," he yelled at Tamika. "You didn't say she knew judo. You said she was a teacher." "She is asterisk a teacher," Tamika screamed, looking up at me with open-mouthed horror. Dree ran out the front door. I heard his car screech out of the driveway a few seconds later. I looked down at the family. Marcus, Diane, Tamika. They were huddled together at the bottom of the stairs, looking up at me. The fear was palpable. It smelled like sweat and panic. They didn't understand what was happening. Their victim, their prey, had suddenly become the predator. "Does anyone else want to teach me some manners?" I asked. Silence. "Good," I said. "I'm going to take a shower." I turned and walked back into the bedroom. But as soon as I closed the door, my legs gave out. I sank to the floor, my heart hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird. I looked at my hands. They were shaking. I wasn't violent. I hated violence. I spent my life fighting with words, with laws, with logic. But these people, they didn't speak that language. They only understood force. I had to keep it up, just for another 24 hours. I spent the rest of the day in the room. I reviewed the footage from the hidden cameras. What I saw chilling me to the bone. Downstairs, they weren't just scared. They were plotting. Around 8:00 p.m. After a silent, terrified dinner where they slid a plate of food to my door like I was a dangerous animal, I pulled up the live feed from the living room camera on my phone. They were huddled around the coffee table. The TV was off. They were whispering. I put in my earbuds and turned up the volume. "She's possessed," Diane was saying, clutching her cross necklace. "That's the only explanation. A demon has taken over her body." "It's not a demon, Mama," Marcus said, rubbing his face. He looked exhausted. "She's snapped. She's had a psychotic break. I looked it up. Violent outbursts, personality changes. She's crazy." "We can't live like this," Tamika hissed. "Did you see what she did to Dree? She could kill us in our sleep." "So what do we do?" Marcus asked. "The cops won't help. She's got files, Mama. She's been documenting everything." "We need to get rid of her," Diane said. My breath caught in my throat. "What do you mean?" Marcus asked. I mean, we need to get her out of this house, Diane said. Her voice dropped lower. If she's crazy, if she's unstable, we can have her committed. Involuntary hold. The state will take her. How? Tamika asked. She acted calm with the cops. We make her look crazy, Diane said. Or we make sure she can't talk. There was a pause, a long, heavy silence. I have those pills, Diane whispered. The ones the doctor gave me for my back, the strong muscle relaxers, and the sleeping pills. Mama, no, Marcus said, but he didn't sound convincing. If she takes enough of them, Diane said, she'll be out cold, unresponsive. We call the ambulance. We tell them she tried to kill herself. We tell them she swallowed a bottle of pills because she was guilty about attacking you. They'll pump her stomach, Tamika said. They'll see she took them. Exactly, Diane smiled. It was a cold, reptilian smile. And then she goes to the psych ward. A suicide attempt gets you an automatic 72-hour hold. And while she's in there, Marcus files for emergency custody of Aaliyah. He says the mother is a danger to herself and the child. And once she's in the system, Marcus said slowly, the plan taking root in his mind, it's hard to get out, especially with a history of violence. By the time she gets out, Diane said, we'll have the custody order, we'll change the locks. She'll be homeless, labeled crazy, and alone. I sat on the floor of the bedroom, staring at the screen. I felt a cold shiver run down my spine. This wasn't just abuse. This was a conspiracy. They were planning to drug me, frame me for suicide, and steal my niece. They were willing to destroy a human being completely, just to maintain their control. When do we do it? Marcus asked. Tomorrow morning, Diane said. She drinks coffee every morning. I'll crush them up. You just make sure Aaliyah is out of the room. Done, Marcus said. They nodded at each other, a pact of wolves. I took the earbuds out. I should have been terrified. I should have been calling the police right then. But I wasn't. I was smiling. Because they had just handed me the final nail for their coffin. They didn't know about the cameras. They didn't know I had just recorded their entire conspiracy to commit felony assault and fraud. You want to play dirty, I whispered to the empty room. Okay, let's play. I didn't sleep that night. I couldn't. I spent the night preparing. I organized every file. I backed up every video to the cloud. I drafted the legal documents on my laptop, divorce papers, restraining orders, custody agreements. I built a fortress of paper and digital evidence that no amount of lying could penetrate. Morning came. The sun rose on day 3. This was it, the final showdown. I got dressed. I put on a sharp blazer over my shirt. No more turtlenecks, no more hiding. I went downstairs. The mood in the kitchen was tense, artificial. Diane was standing by the counter, stirring a mug of coffee. She looked over her shoulder and smiled at me. It was the fakest smile I had ever seen. Good morning, Kesha, she said. Her voice was syrupy sweet. I made you some coffee, I thought. Maybe we could start over today. We've all been under a lot of stress. She held out the mug. I looked at it. I knew what was in it. I knew it was poison. But I had to play the part, just for one more minute. Thank you, Diane, I said softly. That's very nice of you. I took the mug. It was warm in my hands. Drink up, Marcus said from the table. He was watching me intently. His leg was bouncing nervously. It'll help you wake up. Tamika was pretending to read a magazine, but her eyes were darting toward me. They were all waiting for me to take a sip, waiting for me to fall. I lifted the mug to my lips. I saw the anticipation in their eyes, the hunger. I stopped. You know, I said, lowering the mug, this smells funny. It's just a new blend, Diane said quickly. Hazelnut, drink it. No, I said, I don't think I will. I walked over to the sink and poured the entire mug down the drain. The sound of the liquid splashing was loud in the quiet kitchen. What are you doing? Marcus shouted, standing up. My mother made that for you. I turned around. I leaned back against the counter and crossed my arms. I know she did, I said. I also know she crushed 3 muscle relaxers and 2 sleeping pills into it. The silence that followed was absolute. Diane's face went gray. I don't know what you're talking about. Don't you? I asked. I pulled out my phone. I tapped the screen. Diane's voice filled the kitchen. If she takes enough of them, she'll be out cold. We tell them she tried to kill herself. The recording played on. Every word, every detail of their sick plan. Tamika covered her mouth. Marcus looked like he was going to be sick. Diane gripped the counter to keep from falling. That's illegal, Marcus whispered. You recorded us, that's illegal. Actually, I said, my voice shifting, the softness was gone. The hesitation was gone. The Kesha voice was gone. I spoke with the sharp, commanding projection of a seasoned litigator. In this state, it is legal to record a conversation if you are a party to it, or if there is a reasonable expectation that a crime is about to be committed. Conspiracy to commit poisoning and insurance fraud, that definitely counts. I walked over to the kitchen table. I dropped my bag onto it. Thud. Sit down, I commanded. You can't tell us what to do, Tamika stammered. I said sit down. I slammed my hand on the table. They flinched, they sat. You think you're dealing with a scared school teacher, I said, packing in front of them. You think you're dealing with a woman you've broken. You think you can drug her, beat her, and lock her away. I stopped and looked Marcus dead in the eye. But here's the thing, Marcus. You made a mistake, a really big mistake. What mistake? He whispered. You didn't look closely enough, I said. You didn't notice that my hair is parted on the wrong side. You didn't notice that I don't have the scar on my left thumb that Kesha got when she was 6. You didn't notice that I'm left-handed, not right-handed. Confusion washed over his face. What? I reached into my bag and pulled out a business card. I slid it across the table to him. He looked at it. Kenya Matthews, senior partner, criminal defense. I'm not Kesha, I said. The air left the room. I'm her twin sister, and for the last 3 days, I haven't just been living here. I've been building a case against you that is going to bury you. Twin, Diane whispered, but she said you were estranged. We were, I said, until she walked into my office 3 days ago looking like she had gone 10 rounds with a heavyweight boxer. That's when I decided to trade places. I unzipped the bag. I pulled out the stack of files, the DVDs, the photos, the transcripts. This, I pointed to the stack, is your life now. I have evidence of domestic battery, assault with a deadly weapon, child endangerment, conspiracy to commit fraud, and attempted poisoning. That last one alone carries a 20-year sentence. Marcus looked at the pile of evidence. He looked at me. He looked terrified. But then his eyes darkened. He looked at the back door, then at the knife block. You're lying, he said, his voice low. You're bluffing, you're alone here, nobody knows you're here. He stood up slowly. You think you can come into my house and threaten me, he growled. You're just a woman, twin or not, you're just a woman. He took a step toward me. I'm going to make you regret this, he said. I didn't flinch, I didn't move. Are you sure about that, Marcus? I asked. Dead sure, he said. He reached for me. And that's when the front door smashed open. Police, get on the ground. 2 uniformed officers slammed Marcus into the kitchen island before he could take another step. The sound of handcuffs clicking into place was the sweetest music I had ever heard. Marcus Johnson, you are under arrest for attempted assault, the officer barked. Diane screamed. Tamika tried to run toward the back door, but a 3rd officer was already waiting there. Sit down, ma'am, he said, blocking her path. I stood calmly in the middle of the chaos. I smoothed my blazer. I didn't look like a victim. I looked like a general surveying a battlefield she had just won. You called them, Marcus sputtered, his face pressed against the granite countertop. I texted them 10 minutes ago, I said. I told them I was a woman in imminent danger and that there were weapons in the house. I also told them to wait outside until I gave the signal. What signal? He rasped. When I poured the coffee, I said, that was the signal. The officers hauled Marcus upright. He looked small now. The bravado was gone. The swagger was gone. He was just a bully in cuffs, realizing he had picked a fight with the wrong twin. Officer, I said to the lead cop, the veteran from yesterday, my husband just attempted to strike me, again, after threatening to kill me, again. We saw it through the window, ma'am, the officer said. We have probable cause. Good, I said, but before you take him in, I need 5 minutes with all of them. The officer looked at me. He knew I was a lawyer. He knew the game. Keep it civil, he said. He signaled his partner to step back, but they stayed in the room, hands near their holsters. I turned back to the table. Diane was weeping into her hands. Tamika was staring at the floor, shaking. Marcus was leaning against the counter, breathing hard. Listen to me very carefully, I said, my voice cutting through the sound of Diane's sobbing. Right now, Marcus is going to jail for assault. That's a misdemeanor. Maybe a year, probably probation because he's a first-time offender on paper. I walked over to my bag and patted the stack of evidence files. But this, I said, the attempted poisoning, the conspiracy to commit fraud, the felony child abuse, the years of documented torture. I leaned in close to Marcus. That's 40 years, Marcus, minimum, in a maximum security prison. And trust me, guys like you, guys who beat up women and children, you don't do well in prison. Marcus went pale. He knew I was right. And you, Diane, I turned to her. Attempted poisoning is a Class A felony. You'll die in prison. Her sobbing turned into a wail. And Tamika, I said, accessory to assault, conspiracy, you're looking at 10 years. The room was thick with fear, real, suffocating fear. However, I said, pausing for effect, I have a proposition. Marcus looked up. Desperation flared in his eyes. Anything, I'll do anything. I have drafted a settlement agreement, I said, pulling a stapled document from my bag. It's very simple. I laid it on the table. Option 1, I hand this entire bag of evidence to the district attorney. You all go to prison for decades. Aaliyah goes into foster care until I can get custody. Your lives are over. I tapped the paper. Option 2, you sign this. What is it? Marcus asked. It's an uncontested divorce decree. I listed the terms, ticking them off on my fingers. 1, you grant Kesha full physical and legal custody of Aaliyah, no visitation. 0. Marcus opened his mouth to protest, but I shot him a look that shut him up instantly. 2, I continued, you agree to vacate this house immediately. The deed is in Kesha's name, but you will sign a quitclaim deed waiving any marital interest in the property. 3, you pay maximum child support. Based on your income, that's $3,000 a month. I can't afford that, Marcus shouted. Find a way, I said coldly. Sell your car, sell your watch, liquidate your 401k or go to prison, it's your choice. And 4, I looked at Diane and Tamika. You two move out, today, and you all sign permanent restraining orders, 500 feet. If you ever come near Kesha or Aaliyah again, the deal is void and I prosecute you for everything. I pulled a pen from my pocket and clicked it. You have 2 minutes to decide, I said. The officers are waiting. Marcus looked at the officers. He looked at the bag of evidence. He looked at his mother, who was nodding frantically, begging him with her eyes to take the deal. He was trapped, he knew it. If I sign, he whispered, you burn the evidence. If you sign, I said, I keep the evidence in a safety deposit box. As insurance. If you hold up your end of the deal, it never sees the light of day. If you miss one payment or send one text message or drive down the street, I walk it straight to the DA. He slumped against the counter. The fight went out of him completely. Uncuff him, I said to the officer. He needs to write. The officer looked at me, then unlocked the cuffs. Marcus rubbed his wrists. He walked to the table like a man walking to the gallows. He picked up the pen. His hand was shaking so badly, he could barely hold it. He signed. Diane signed next, her tears splashing onto the paper. Tamika signed last, not making eye contact. I took the papers. I checked every signature. I checked every initial. Done, I said. I put the papers in my bag and zipped it shut. Now get out, I said. What? Marcus blinked. Now. Right now, I said. Grab your essentials. You have 10 minutes. The officers will escort you off the property. You can come back for your furniture on Saturday with a moving truck and a police escort. But for now, you leave. But I have nowhere to go, Diane wailed. Not my problem, I said. I watched them scramble. It was pathetic, really. They grabbed clothes, chargers, toiletries. They stuffed things into trash bags. The kings and queens of the castle were reduced to refugees in their own home. 10 minutes later, they were standing on the sidewalk. I stood in the doorway. Wait, I said. They turned around, looking hopeful. Maybe they thought I was going to show mercy. I have one more surprise for you, I said. I pulled out my phone and dialed a number. You can come in now, I said into the phone. A moment later, a beat-up sedan pulled into the driveway. The door opened, and my sister stepped out. The look on Marcus's face was worth every second of fear, every moment of risk. He looked at me, then he looked at her. We were wearing identical outfits. I had told her what to wear. Black slacks, white blouse. We stood side by side on the porch. Identical faces, identical hair. But the eyes were different. Mine were hard, satisfied. Hers were healing, but for the first time in years, they were bright. My God, Marcus whispered. There's two of them. Kesha looked at him. She didn't flinch. She didn't cower. She had her sister beside her, and that made her invincible. Hello, Marcus, she said. Her voice was steady. You, he pointed at her, then at me. You tricked me, you set me up. No, Kesha said. I just finally got a good lawyer. She stepped forward, just an inch. I want you to remember this moment, she said. I want you to remember that you didn't break me. You thought you could crush me, but all you did was wake up my other half. Get off my property, I added. The officers ushered them away. I watched them get into Marcus's car. I watched them drive away, down the street, out of the neighborhood and out of our lives. When the taillights disappeared, I felt a tension in my shoulders that I hadn't even realized was there suddenly snap. I turned to Kesha. She was looking at me. Tears were streaming down her face, but they weren't sad tears. Is it real? She asked. Are they really gone? They're gone, I said, and they're never coming back. She collapsed into my arms. We sank to the porch floor, holding each other, crying and laughing at the same time. The twin effect was strong. I felt her relief like it was my own. Thank you, she sobbed into my shoulder. Thank you, thank you, thank you. You saved yourself, Kesha, I whispered. I just opened the door. We sat there for a long time. Then, the front door opened behind us. Mommy. Aaliyah. She ran out in her pajamas. She saw her mother. She saw me. She looked confused for a second, seeing double, but then she didn't care. She launched herself at Kesha. Mommy, you're back. Kesha buried her face in her daughter's hair. I'm back, baby. I'm back and I'm never leaving again. I watched them holding each other, bathed in the morning sunlight. The house behind us was quiet. The darkness had been purged. I knew there was still work to do. There would be therapy. There would be nightmares. Healing isn't a straight line. But the monster was gone. 6 months later, I parked my car in the driveway. The house looked different now. Kesha had painted the front door a bright, cheerful yellow. There were flowers in the flower beds, real ones, not the plastic ones Diane used to insist on. I walked inside. The smell of lemon cleaner and stale cigarettes was gone. Now, it smelled like vanilla and baking bread. Auntie Kenya. Aaliyah came barreling down the hallway. She was wearing a superhero cape and a mask. I'm Supergirl, she announced, striking a pose. You sure are, I said, picking her up and spinning her around. She was lighter now. Not physically, she had actually gained a healthy amount of weight, but her spirit was lighter. The shadow was gone from her eyes. Kesha walked in from the kitchen. She looked radiant. The bruises were a distant memory. She had cut her hair into a bob, reclaiming her own style. She was wearing a dress that showed her arms. No more long sleeves in summer. "Hey you," she smiled, hugging me. "You're just in time for dinner, and guess what? I didn't burn it." We laughed. It was a private joke now. We sat down to eat. It was just the three of us, the three musketeers. "So," Kesha said, passing me the salad, "I got a letter today." "From who?" I asked, instantly alert. "From the bank," she said, grinning. "The final mortgage payment. Marcus's settlement check cleared. The house is officially 100% paid off." "That's amazing," I said. "And," she continued, "I heard from a friend of a friend. Marcus is living in a studio apartment above a garage in the bad part of town. He lost his job at the pharmaceutical company because of the arrest record. He's working at a warehouse now." "Good," I said, taking a bite of a roll. "Character building." "And Diane?" Kesha asked. "Living in a state-run nursing home," I said. "Turns out she alienated every other relative she had. Nobody else would take her in." "Karma," Kesha said softly. We finished dinner in peace. No yelling, no fear, just the sound of forks scraping plates and Aaliyah telling us about her day at kindergarten. After Aaliyah went to bed, Kesha and I sat on the back porch, drinking tea. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of purple and gold. "You know," Kesha said, looking out at the yard, "I used to dream about this, just sitting here, not being afraid." "You deserve it," I said. "I talked to my therapist about you," she said, glancing at me sideways. "Oh yeah," I raised an eyebrow. "Am I the villain or the hero in her version?" "She said you're the intervention," Kesha said. "She said sometimes when a person is drowning, they can't swim to the surface themselves. Someone has to dive in and pull them up." I took a sip of tea. "I didn't just pull you up, Kesh. I drowned the shark." She laughed. "That you did." She reached out and took my hand. "I don't know how I can ever repay you," she said. "You don't have to," I said. "But maybe don't date anyone for a while. My heart can't take another rescue mission." "Deal," she smiled. "Just me and Aaliyah for a long time." I drove home that night feeling a sense of peace I hadn't felt in years. People ask me if I regret it. They ask me if I feel guilty about impersonating my sister, about tricking a family, about essentially blackmailing 3 people into ruin. I'm a lawyer. I took an oath to uphold the law. Technically, what I did was a gray area, a very, very dark gray area. But then I think about Aaliyah. I think about the way she used to flinch when a door slammed. I think about the bruises on my sister's neck. I think about the millions of women who don't have a twin sister to swap places with them. The system is broken. It asks victims to be perfect witnesses. It asks them to document their own torture while they are trying to survive it. It asks them to trust a process that fails them over and over again. Marcus Johnson was never going to stop. He was going to kill her. It was a mathematical certainty. I didn't break the law. I broke the cycle. And honestly, the look on his face when he realized he had lost everything. The look of a bully who finally met someone he couldn't intimidate. I'd do it again. If you are watching this and you are in that house, if you are walking on eggshells, if you are covering bruises, please listen to me. You are stronger than you think. But you don't have to do it alone. Document everything. Tell someone, tell everyone, make a plan, hide money. And if you can't find the strength to fight for yourself, imagine you are fighting for your sister, or your daughter, or the woman you used to be before he stole your light. Fight like hell. Because you deserve a life where the only thing you have to fear when the front door opens is who's going to hug you first. My name is Kenya Matthews. I saved my sister. And now we're living happily ever after, with a big smile. And we're just getting started.